Greetings and welcome back to Doctor Who Revisited, where I go through every single episode of Doctor Who from 1963 all the way up to 2023 and review them. And now we are on Genesis of the Daleks. I love this episode. I love this episode. This episode is perfection in its. There's a reason why it's widely considered to be probably the best episode of the classic series, if not one of, if not the best episodes of Doctor Who of all time. It is, and it's not just because the Daleks are in it. It's not just because it's the introduction of Davros. It's because it's start to finish a very, very well planned, thought out episode, and just it's a joy to be on for the ride. First of all, starting with where the previous episode left off, with the Doctor and friends trying to get back to Nerva Beacon to get back to the TARDIS, they're being intercepted by some random weirdo Time Lord that puts the Doctor on a mission. And of course, there have been several different versions of, or other explanations as to who that Time Lord actually was. I prefer to be in the camp of it's actually Chancellor Valias from the Gallifrey series. But if you haven't listened to the Gallifrey series, I'm not going to spoil too much for you. Let's just say there's a reason why he intercepted the Doctor in that particular point in time. Probably not the one you would expect if you're only just watching the TV episode. That's all I'm going to say. Go ahead and listen to the Gallifrey series on Big Finish. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. That being said, I love that scene of just him walking with the Doctor, and the Doctor's like, "No, whatever I did to you in the past has been forgiven. Come on, leave me alone. I got my TARDIS back. My exile's lifted. Whatever it is, I'm not interested. Daleks, tell me more." So that's just a great. Tom Baker just has such a great comedic timing, paired up with just his charisma as the Doctor, and that's one of the many reasons why his Doctor works as well as he does. But so not wasting any time, letting you know exactly where the situation is heading straight off the bat. You're on Skaro. You're in the middle of the war between that essentially turned, or rather, birthed the creation of the Daleks. You have to either stop them, alter their biology, or learn a potential weakness about them. Great way to start an episode. I mean, they leave you with these enough breadcrumbs. Go. And I just love it. And then, so you already have in your mind a more or less clear picture on where this episode is going to go now, but it's got so many twists and turns that you're not expecting, you're not seeing coming. And so this episode just becomes so much bigger than it was initially. First of all, you kind of learn that this war has not only a bloody one, it's been going on for years and years and years later. It's been realized that it's gone on for 1,000 years, which is why it gained the name of the 1,000-Year War. But first of all, let's just clear this out right up top. So Terry Nation himself, who wrote this episode and also creator of the Daleks, the true creator of the Daleks, I would say, he actually served in the war. He actually served in World War II, which is where he got a lot of the inspiration for a lot of the things that he did. I mean, case in point, just look at the Khalids. They're basically Nazis, space Nazis. And I think I said this a couple of times already. Even in this season, as a matter of fact, if you need a good idea for a villain, always bet on Nazis. So, right then and there, that's a great inspiration for a villain and for a Doctor Who setting it in a war, and just to show you how badly this war's been going on and how long it's been going on. There's a mixture of advanced laser weapons with assault rifles and gas masks and air bombings, and of course some other elements have been added to this war in later Doctor Who media, just to show you, from the mixture of different technologies from different eras, that's how badly this war has been going on. And I think it's been said several times in Doctor Who. I can't remember at the moment exactly where or when, but it's been said several times that the war itself has been going on for so long that nobody could remember how long it's been going, or even what they were fighting about in the first place. And that really is a kind of a way of looking at war. And for example, even World War One, it was never named World War One. It only got the name after World War Two. It was just known as the war to end all wars. It's gotten to the point where people in this episode, the Khalids and the Thals, they became so entrenched in the war, no pun intended there. They become so entrenched in the war that all they ever knew was war. I mean, after 1,000 years, that's like hundreds of generations of people who grew up only knowing war and not knowing peace. So they couldn't even conceive of what peace could be like after the days of the war. And just to prove a point, they still I think they mentioned it in the episode a couple of times that there are no life on other planets, and there's like only 7 inhabited galaxies and whatnot. So yeah, they've been so busy and just so focused on the war that they never even allowed themselves the privilege to think outside that box. And just as far as world building goes, that's some great character building right there. And there's just so many different layers of the structure of how Skara was, and the science core, the military core, and all that. There's some really great politics explored in the I Davros series on Big Finish, which I highly recommend you listen to. It's amazing. Yes, it's an origin story for Davros, but it's great, and I love it. It's amazing, really, truly. I cannot recommend this enough. I've listened to a lot of Big Finish stuff, hundreds. This is the best one I've listened to thus far. So that's just some praise from my end to tell you how good that series is. But having said that, the Khalids. We already know the Thals. We're familiar with the Thals. We've seen the Thals a couple of times now. So they're not too big of a surprise. But then once you get to learn that, oh yeah, the Daleks were once called the Khalids, and they were once humanoid. They once looked like humans, or looked like Thals, as a matter of fact. And then they mutated as a result of the war, the ongoing war, which resulted in mutations on both sides, known as the Mutos, an essential subspecies of Thals and Khalids, who just wanted to get away from the war and were hated by both sides. And here's another good element to it. I love that this episode doesn't necessarily portray one side as the bad guy and the other side is the good guy. I mean, obviously, knowing what we know about the Daleks and the Thals, by this point already, we know who the good guys and who the bad guys are. But I mean, in war, there are no good guys and there are no bad guys. There's just two sides at war with each other. And of course, we're already predisposed to disliking the Khalids. If not from the fact that we already know that they're going to become the Daleks anyway, then just look at how they dress. Look at how they walk. I mean, they're Nazis, so you're already predisposed to not liking them. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have the Thals, and yes, they captured Sarah Jane and a couple of Mutos, and even a Khalid person, and they kind of force them to work a grueling work that's going to kill them in the end, so they can attack the Khalids. And I love that scene of just Sarah Jane talking to that one Khalid guy, and you can feel the fear and sadness in his voice of like, they're forcing us to build a bomb. My people will get destroyed. My people will get wiped out. So yeah, even though he's a Khalid, you feel for the guy. And later, when Sarah Jane comes up with the idea of trying to escape by climbing on top of the scaffolding, the guy sacrifices his life to save her. That's like, again, you could have just painted all the Khalids as this black and white. The Khalids are the bad guys, the Thals are the good guys, but they don't do that. and I love that. There's some mean Thals on the Thal side, and on the Khalid side, there's people working against Davros and trying to help the Doctor and Harry. And I love that. I love this. I had the word a second ago in my head, and I lost it. But I just love that we're getting to see both sides of the conflict, clearly knowing which side we should be rooting on, which of course is the Doctor. But we're seeing both sides of this insane conflict, and we just can't really figure which side is worse until the Daleks show up, of course. But that's neither here nor there at the moment. So yeah, like I said, we already know where the story's going. The Doctor's going to try to stop the Daleks from ever existing. That's the plan. That's the direction. That's where the episode's supposed to go. And then it doesn't, because they lose the time ring, their only way back to the TARDIS. And so this episode sort of becomes another secondary struggle of trying to stop the Daleks from becoming the Daleks, and at the same time trying to retrieve the time ring. And you just can't figure out which one to prioritize. Oh yeah, there's also that little matter of the Thals wanting to bomb the Khalid city or the Khalid dome, and there's just so many moving parts to this episode. It's getting hard to follow, and that's really what makes this episode so great. It just shows you how massive and complex war is. And speaking of how massive and complex war is, the man himself, Davros. Davros, he is a legendary villain. Obviously, he's one of the greatest villains in Doctor Who, but it's not one of those villains that. Yeah, so yeah, he made an impression, and it sort of kind of took a while until he gained that ultimate villain level status. No. They, for some reason, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the writing by Terry Nation. Maybe it's the acting by Michael Wisher. Maybe it's the design of the character, the prosthetics, the life support system. I just don't know what it is, but just they knocked this character out of the park first try. Like from the very first moment you see him in the dark shadow of him testing the weapons of that Dalek, and then later when you see him in his full entirety, he shows up in wheels around on that wheelchair, the life support system, he introduces the Dalek and just shows how terrifying the Daleks can be. And it's the Daleks. You already know what they are. You're already afraid of them, and somehow you're scared of Davros even more. And he's disabled. He's got one arm, no legs. He's literally on life support, and somehow he's even more terrifying than the Daleks. And that's amazing. That's how you build a great legendary Doctor Who villain. And it's a joy to watch. It's a joy to see. He's just electric in every single scene he's in. He just steals the show, and it's amazing. And I just love that conversation that he has with the Doctor in one of the later episodes about, if you have the power to kill everyone, will you? Or something like that. If you had like a virus that would kill everyone, will you use it? And I just love his response to that. And you really can kind of, even though it's a mask, you can, the level of acting and the, for lack of a better word, the expressions or lack thereof on his face, you can see the wheels turning in his head. You can really see the character really thinking it over, really considering what the proposition that the Doctor just laid out for him. And it's great. I honestly, I don't know how they nailed this character as good as they did from the start, but boy, am I glad that they did, because he's legitimately one of the best villains in Doctor Who ever. And one of the best Doctor Who villain sidekicks of all time, Nyder. As much as Michael Wisher nails the character of Davros out of the park first try, the character of Nyder, played by Peter Miles, I believe his name is, he's just so committed to the role, both Peter Miles to the character of Nyder, and also Nyder. You've seen the commitment, the loyalty to Davros, the unbreaking, unwavering loyalty. Even there are multiple times when you think Nyder's going to betray Davros and sell him out, but no. Everything he does for Davros and what he believes is the greater good of his people, and just no matter what Davros says, no matter how badly Davros treats him, he stands by his side. Just that level of blind loyalty is a really strong trait in a character like this. And I just, again, the comparisons to the Nazis, the salute and whatnot, the way he walks, and neither that is, and just everything. I just love everything about this character, and it's a shame he kind of dies in this episode. We never get to see him again, but thankfully, Peter Miles actually got to play that character again in the aforementioned Davros miniseries on Big Finish. And like I said, I just can't recommend that series enough. It's great. It's amazing. You should go ahead and listen to it right now, as soon as you're done with this review. That is. But yeah. So and you know what else? Even Harry has his moments in this episode. I'll admit, and I said this a bunch of times. I'm not the biggest fan of Harry Sullivan. He kind of has some good moments. He kind of does some really great stuff in this episode. He really does kind of get a chance to shine. Like, for some reason, this episode just elevates everyone who's in it. From Sarah Jane's ingenuity, from the masterful speeches made by the Doctor multiple times in the episode, and just the acting from Tom Baker when he thinks that Harry and Sarah are dead. And obviously, I talk about Davros, I talk about Nyder. Even Harry has his moments. So this episode just really elevates everyone who's in it, from the main characters to the small supporting characters, and even that young Thal woman who helped essentially bury the Daleks in their own city by the end. And oh yeah, speaking of which, going back to Davros for a bit, Davros pulls one of the most badass boss moments ever in Doctor Who. Like, he's starting to feel like the other colleagues are moving against him, that they have doubts about his project. So what does he do? He moves over to the other side, gives them the weapons that they needed to destroy his own people, and just goes back and waits for them to do so. How badass is that? Like, he's so committed to his Dalek project that when he knows that that the politicians are gonna shut him down, he goes over to the enemy side and tells them how to destroy his people, and he just sacrifices his entire people for just to ensure that his Dalek project still continues. I don't know what to tell you. What kind of a sick villain does that? And I love that. And oh yeah, there's also that great, wonderful cliffhanger. Again, I don't know how they nailed this character out of the park as well as they did, because he ties up the Doctor to a very sensitive lie detector, and he hooks up Sarah Jane and Harry to torture devices, and tells the Doctor to tell him exactly in detail every single Dalek defeat and how to stop them and how to prevent it without lying. Otherwise, he's going to torture Harry and Sarah, and then he records it all on a tape. And so it sort of becomes a triple threat. You have to stop the Daleks, you have to find the time ring, and you have to find the recording tape of everything the Doctor said. It's that Back to the Future element of, like, anything that can go wrong does go wrong, and it just gets worse and worse as it gets along. And you kind of put in a situation of, like, how are the characters going to win this? How could anyone come out on top? And eventually they do, and even Davros loses by the end, because the Daleks kill Nyder and potentially maybe kill Davros. I mean, it kind of feels like Terry Nation wanted his death to be final, but well, other Doctor Who writers have had other plans since then. But this kind of really establishes the Dalek dominance that we're going to see later. And it kind of also sets up lots of things for the future of the Daleks moving forward in so many different ways. And I can't wait to be along for the ride. Now, sadly, we're not going to see the Daleks for a while now, which is sad, which sucks. They're not going to show up again until Tom Baker's penultimate season. But what are you going to do? I mean, this also gave a lot of opportunities for other Doctor Who villains to shine. But I mean, the Daleks are the bread and butter. But I mean, that's just behind the scenes studio politics that I'm not going to get into right now. So I just really love the episode. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see more Doctor Who Tom Baker episodes. Eventually, they finally get the time ring and they get back to where the TARDIS is, or so they thought. So I'll talk more about that in my next review. But until then, everybody, let me know what you thought about this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Have a jelly baby. Hi there. Thank you for watching the video. And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tell your friends. I'll see you next time.